All right, so when you get your new main shaft, the first thing that we're going to want to do is transfer over the snap ring, okay, because they don't come with a new snap ring. Oftentimes, this is reusable, so just transfer it over, okay, and inspect the shaft, okay, and we want to see what are we looking for. We just want to look for any burrs from the machining process. We want to make sure that everything is nice and smooth on the ends of the shafts. A lot of times when I'm rebuilding these, you'll see me polish out where second gear rides, where the needle roller rides, and so forth. So we're just going to inspect the shaft, okay? Because all these parts are all mass produced, right? And they don't have any wear to them yet, like your original takeoff. So once you transfer on your snap ring, the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to take our first gear and we're going to slide that on, and we're going to make sure that everything slides on nice and smooth. Everything, the gear slides well, and we have minimal amount of play. I mean, you're going to have a little bit of play, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But we just want to make sure that everything slides on easily. The next thing that you want to do is, and we'll just put this aside, okay, is our second gear, okay? One thing about second gear, and we'll refer to this as the cone of the gear, is we want to take our blocking ring, and hopefully you can kind of see that, but there's a little bit of a gap, and the blocking ring and the cone of second gear is an interference fit. One way to tell if your blocking rings are worn is when see these little tiny teeth that are here? Those are called chevrons. When the blocking ring is up against the chevrons, we know that we have a taper match, which means that the blocking ring is worn, okay? The purpose of this blocking ring is to slow down the gear, okay, via interference fit. So one thing that I'll do is I'll try to thread on, okay, the blocking ring, and I want that blocking ring to come off easily, okay? So we're just lightly threaded on, try to thread it on, and we want to make sure that the blocking ring comes off. If the blocking ring threads on and you got to pry a screwdriver, it's not a big deal. It's not ideal, but we're going to polish the end of this. And a lot of times you'll find in guys that do like race cars and other transmissions, they'll actually polish this out. You'll see me do this because we just want an interference fit and the blocking ring to easily detach from the cone of the gear. So it doesn't mean that the gear is, incorrect. It just means that we just need to finesse and polish it out a little bit. And you'll notice that on your originals, they're really polished, and that's from years of use, okay? So if everything works out pretty good and we can take our blocking ring out, then we can assemble that, okay? Sometimes you'll see me polish the inside of here, and we just want to alleviate any friction that we have. That's my personal preference. The other thing we're going to do is make sure that everything spins right. We have minimal amount of play here, and we're going to install our blocking ring. The next thing is the synchronizer hub assembly, okay? You notice that you have a groove on one side and not on the other side. This was actually part of the machining process, okay, to kind of index this when they do their broaching. That's your center line. However, if you were to actually measure this, the ring does not dictate what side or what orientation the collar is, okay? So you can put it on the collar, this is, not the hub. You can put it on both ways. It does not matter. If it makes you feel comfortable putting, a lot of times you'll find the ring towards the front, you can go ahead and do that. The larger end of the hub always goes towards, okay, the front of the input shaft, okay? One thing that guys want to have a hard time with is the spring orientation. It gets clipped on one end and wraps around, and on the other end, it clips in the other direction and wraps around. So we got one going this way and one going that way, okay? Now, there are a couple of different dogs that are offered for it. And what we want to do is we look at the inside of the collar And the dogs that we have today have a larger nub on them, and they fit really nice in the dog, okay? And you can tell by, we want minimal amount of dog movement. Once it's secured in that groove in the collar, then that's the dogs that we want, okay? So next thing that we're gonna do, okay, so this is something that we're just gonna put the ring on towards the front of the transmission. The larger end goes towards the front of the main shaft. Shallow end goes towards second gear. Next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna assemble, okay, the synchronizer hub. And this is a little hard to do, and it should be a nice snug fit in there. And we're gonna line up, okay, the dog with the groove on the blocking ring, okay? That's key. The next thing that we're gonna do, and this is interesting, there are a couple of different snap rings that are offered for the front, and we're gonna test fit this, and we're gonna put it into the groove, because here's the thing, if you had a snap ring that was super thin, let's say 50 thousandths, okay, when you go to secure it in place, your second gear is going to have some movement to it. Now we need a little bit of a gap for oil, but we don't want it too tight where we really can't spin it. And sometimes that happens like on a T90, okay, if the groove, or the snap ring rather, is a smaller snap ring. T90s actually had two snap rings. The most common is a 90 thousandths. I've seen the T84s come in 50, 55, 61. 61 is the GPW. And then I've also seen a 65 thousandths floating around. So when I'm rebuilding these, I have a bunch of snap rings, and that helps me index where second gear is. If you have too much of a gap, let's say when you put your snap ring on, and let's say you were using a 50 thousandths, we'll throw that number out there, and you notice that second gear has a little bit of movement, we just need to go to a different snap ring, okay? This is one of the things that makes the T84 rather challenging, is there's kind of a lot of mechanical adjustments. It's not necessarily that the part is wrong, we just need to marry a couple of things together. And when you're intertwining parts, well, it becomes even more challenging. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put our snap ring on, and let's go ahead and you only wanna open up that snap ring just a little bit, just enough, and make sure that it pops into place, okay? And we wanna look what we have for second gear. Now what I'll normally do is I'll throw a feeler gauge in between second gear and the main shaft, and I like to shoot for somewhere around 4 thousandths, okay? I think if you have 20 thousandths of end play on second gear, that becomes a little bit of a problem. That means helical cut gears always like to pull and push, okay? They tend to run a little quiet, but they like to pull and push. On, let's say, a new Venture 4500, the rear fifth gear always likes to pop out, okay? Even if you had a nut on the back. So any of this movement that we have, we want at an absolute minimum. Now we can go and we can put a different snap ring on and tighten this, a little bit, okay? So what I'll do in another video is show you what happens. We'll put a feeler gauge on, we'll use another snap ring, and I'll show you what we're looking at. But that's the assembly of the T84 main shaft. So I'll do another video and show you guys an adjustment that I can make in order to tighten up second gear just a little bit. This is okay, but let's say I wanted to tighten it up, I'll use another snap ring and we'll take it from there. So This is your main shaft. That's your orientation, right? It goes back and make sure that everything is smooth. Make sure that this spins smooth. We should have minimal amount of drag. We just want a little bit of drag, nothing crazy. And we want to make sure that if you look at the blocking ring, see how it kind of stops when you rotate it? That means that you've put the blocking ring, it's incorrectly, meaning the grooves on the blocking ring match. See if I can do this without popping it out. The grooves of the blocking ring match where the dog is going to be, okay? And we just want to make sure everything is nice and secured, okay? So we'll do another video showing an adjustment on here, and then we'll start moving on to our next process. So I like to do these in kind of like a third. So we'll do the main shaft. Once I have that where I want it to be, then we'll go ahead and we'll do the input shaft. We'll assemble that. We'll show you a little process on how to fine tune that. Then we'll start putting the cluster gear in the case and make sure that that's good. Once all that is done, then we can start going into the actual assembly process.